Hi, how's everyone doing? Good afternoon. Are you all good? Do you all remember me? I was here this morning. Cool, that's good, because we're just keeping the same topic. So you remember I was talking about how at the ARF in the past few months we've been talking to the creative experts to understand how to create effective advertising for the mobile device. And we talk about things like very often shorter is better. We want to adapt for the screen and make sure the vertical experience is as good as the horizontal experience. We want to engage early because we're doing a bunch of other things at the same time. We want to develop creative that's understandable without audio, but we want them to activate the audio. And then we also talked about two things that are really important and that are really big opportunities. One is engagement, so the opportunity that we have in the mobile device for the user to interact with the brand, to actually do something with the brand. And then the other one is the huge amount of data that we have that we can leverage to develop very effective creative. So now we're going to follow up with an amazing panel of creative experts. So it's my great honor to introduce who's going to be our moderator today. He's Nick Moore. He's the Executive Creative Director at Roar. Please, I want a standing ovation for Nick, actually. Please.
I'm taking my time on my ride. Taking my time on my ride.
Not the beginning. So we're here to talk about creating effective mobile advertising. This is going to be like I feel this is going to be a 20-minute break from the pure math, and we're going to drift into applied math here, because this is kind of how, when the insights are created, when the opportunity is identified, very talented people like my colleagues here actually create something that reaches, touches, and moves consumers. So I'd like to introduce to my immediate right Nick Law, who is the Global Chief Creative Officer of RGA and a long-standing champion of outstanding creativity. And to his right, Sarah Watson, who is the Global and New York Chief Strategy Officer of BBH. So please, a round of applause for my colleagues here. What we're going to do, I was always told, don't tell, show. So in the interest of talking about creating effective mobile advertising, we're going to show an example that Nick and Sarah have been instrumental in creating, and then we're going to talk about the lessons that they have drawn from their experience with these outstanding advertising campaigns. So Sarah, I'm going to start with you, if I may. Would you like to talk to us and just introduce the campaign that you're going to share for Sony PlayStation?
Yes, so I'm going to share with you the campaign that we did for PlayStation. It ran in the week leading up to Black Friday in the holiday season just gone. I'll play the film and then I'll talk to you a little bit more about the specific objectives.
Okay.
When PlayStation puts new content out in the world, gamers turn to their phones to devour it. They analyze every detail and race to call out their discoveries in the comments feed. So we thought, what if we rewarded that passion by gamifying the comments feed and transforming it into a real-time mobile response campaign? It all started with a 2-minute film featuring a king. Instead of settling for his past glory, he escapes to fight in the latest PlayStation 4 adventures. Hidden in the film were over 100 Easter eggs, real gaming treasures we knew gamers would comment on. And true to form, they did.
Love that Aku Aku, man.
The Gallahorn at 055.
But this time, the king responded, rewarding them with real-life versions of the treasures they found.
The Gallahorn. May it bring you as much joy, Jonathan Dockery.
To do that, a full team worked behind the scenes to reach gamers on Messenger, getting their address to send them their treasure. Response films, shot for mobile, were personalized to the gamer, showing the treasure being sent to their home. The King's Guard were then deployed to deliver some in person. Live vertical videos captured gamers' reactions. For 4 days, the mobile feed blew up as the king emptied his treasure trove. Huge oil paintings, intergalactic weapons, armor forged for gods, and ancient relics. They were all packaged with the royal treatment and finished off with a personalized letter from the king. And when their treasures arrived, gamers flooded the feed with appreciation, posting live unboxing films shot on their phones.
Look at that.
With instant responses, real-time personalized films, in-person deliveries, and live unboxing videos, we transformed a single comments feed into a real-time mobile response campaign, a first of its kind on Facebook. With a staggering 92% of impressions on mobile, the campaign gathered over 24 million video views and an unprecedented 19,000 comments, helping make PlayStation 4 the best-selling console of 2016.
PlayStation.
Well, how about that?
So just to give you a sense of what we are trying to achieve with this. So the PlayStation 4 is in its, well, it's now in its 4th year. That was its 3rd holiday season. And so I'm sure some of you are more familiar with the gaming category than others. But 3 years into a generation of a console, you can imagine the day one consumers, the kind of the PlayStation 3 users who really wanted to upgrade, most of them have jumped already. So at this point in the generation, we're really starting to speak to those Xbox 360 users and PlayStation 3 users who have been kind of sitting on the fence and who have been waiting to see which prices are going to drop, where the best content's going to be, all of that stuff. PlayStation can never compete with Xbox on price. Xbox outdo them on price all the time. They come from very different kind of strategic backgrounds there. And nobody really knows what innovation is going to be playing out in the next few years, because these gamers are looking to see which horse should I back, which platform is going to really get me and give me the best titles and the best experiences for the next foreseeable few years. And so really, our objective was to, because of course there's lots of different titles and lots of different innovations, was to create something that just said, gamers, we get you, we love you, we're just going to give you so many things that you are just going to adore, and it's going to be amazing. And so obviously what I've shared with you here was the mobile aspect of actually what was a kind of multi-million-dollar epic PlayStation film, which we then kind of rolled out into more interactive behavior. And yeah, so that's the background there.
Cool. Thank you very much. That's awesome. So we're going to share the second film with you now, so that we can then discuss both of them. You said something really interesting, Nick, when we were putting this together, that your agency these days really wouldn't do anything that isn't mobile. So,
well, if it's not thought of through the filter of mobile, then I'm not sure how many of, especially the younger audience, is going to care about it or see it. So, you know, I mean, it's true for even the above-the-line work that we do. We tend to do a social cut, like 3-minute cut, and then cut it down to a 30-second. So we always think about the stream before we think about, you know, broadcast.
Great. Do you want to introduce the Nike On Demand?
Yeah, so this is, we've been working with Nike for about 16 years now. We've done all sorts of things with their digital sport and innovation teams, with their marketing team. What you're going to see is something that looks more like where they're going, which is they're concentrating on membership. So rather than CRM, they would consider any interaction with their audience to be more of a membership relationship. So here's an example of that. Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So there are two things that come together in that case study. About 10 years ago now, we did the first version of Nike Plus. Nike Plus is a running app that you know that tracked your activity when running. So since then, Nike has developed a few other platforms: Nike Run Club, Nike Training, where they're able to gather data and give data back to their consumers. So they're sitting on a lot of data around the sports that they champion. So that sort of if you overlap that with what I was mentioning before, which is how do we know people better so that we can help them perform better through this very personal membership interaction, then you bring those two things together and you get that, right? Which is a very simple thing. It's all through WhatsApp, and it's delivering. There was no one conversation with a consumer that was the same with the other. So it was all very bespoke, but it was fed by data. So we used data and to some extent algorithms and machine learning to make sure that it was a more human interaction, not a less human interaction. It was that was piloted in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, which, as you all know, is the sort of belly of the Adidas beast. And so for us, that was the sort of best way to get what Nike represents into a place where their competitors are maybe, not worrying too much and maybe getting a bit lazy. So it was hugely successful. And now the goal is to scale it, right? And to scale it by using more data, but always having this human interaction. And always, one of the things that we found was that it was particularly motivating to know when you're getting interaction with someone through WhatsApp who you know is a person, because you don't want to let down a person. You don't really care if you let down a robot. At least I don't. So, so that's that.
That's awesome. It's a great case. Sarah, when you look at this, one of the things listening to the both of you talk, you didn't set out to make a mobile campaign. You didn't set out to do a data-driven. You set out to reach people. I mean, would you care to talk about that in connection with the Sony example?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting spending the day kind of, hearing about research. And obviously, as researchers, you have to be so specific about sources and different media and all that stuff. It was so interesting. When Nick and I were asked to speak on this panel, I think we both had the same reaction, which is we don't really have mobile case studies. We just make things and we think about where people are and how they're going to interact with it, which most of the time happens to be on mobile. And so it's not a distinction we really make in our minds. And I think, so the insight at the core, as it says in our case study, is it's not a general mobile insight. It's an insight that's really specific to PlayStation and to gamers, which is, you play them some content, they will go through it in minute detail and they will comment on it and call it out. So, and that's a tiny, tiny little insight, but that is the insight that underpins that entire case study. So it's not a general mobile insight. And also, by the way, those same people aren't calling things out for any other brand. They're probably not even calling it out for Nike. It's because gaming is this imaginative universe that they engage with. So I think all these questions, we didn't even use the word mobile as we're having that conversation. We're just saying, what is going to set people on fire and get them to really engage with this?
Right. So, and building on that, I mean, we build here as talking about creating effective mobile advertising. And looking at the Nike example, Nick, it's advertising, Jim, but not as we know it.
I don't think it's advertising at all.
No?
Actually, no. I mean,
That's
I think it's service design.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and not only that, but I think it's very difficult for an agency that doesn't have people that aren't advertising people in it to do something like that.
Right.
It's not episodic, it's a platform. It's going to be something that's built over time. It needs systematic thinkers thinking about the problem and thinking about the user. It's not about messaging, it's a far more, as I said, it's like service design. I mean, the fact that it's delivered through a conversational interface makes it more human, but it's still ultimately service design.
Right. And is, in your mind, as you think about creating experiences going forward, particularly in mobile platforms, is that where the effectiveness, is that where the creativity drives you, as opposed to kind of more legacy advertising format?
Well, I think there are instances where you want to message to people. I think the larger issue is not whether you tell a story or you enable a behavior. It's how you do it, where you do it, and where the audience is. I think the problem with most narrative advertising is it uses a language that comes from the creative revolution in the 60s. And the sort of tropes of advertising and the sort of the grammar of the narrative around advertising, I think just makes younger consumers, it just turns them off. So this is not just a sort of technical challenge of how to reach people, it's also, what's the texture of the creative, what's the craft of the creative that you're reaching them. I mean, the example I like to use is that I'm sure that when there were people sitting in an ancient Greek amphitheater watching a Greek play thinking, well, this is just normal, that these people wear masks. If you put me in front of that, I don't know what the bloody hell's going on, right? That we're always, like, this art is something that evolves with culture, and our ability to sort of decode that art is so dependent on sort of cultural norms and sort of evolving relationship with narrative. And my feeling right now is that most advertising is speaking in a language that's 50 years old.
Right.
So the question of whether it's narrative or behavioral is one thing, but also, like, I question the effectiveness of TV advertising, not necessarily because it's on TV, but because it's using tropes that just turn people off.
Right.
That smell like advertising, smell desperate, and it's sort of so top down and so unempathetic, I think. And that's my rant.
So let me build on Nick's rant with you, Sarah, because I think you did what he's talking about. You took the story and you said, okay, this group of people are going to understand these obscure things, and we're going to make them relevant to people one at a time, and then we're going to get the scale through them, not through just a paid media buy. Is that kind of fair to describe?
Yeah,
it
kind
like
of. I mean, I think what's interesting about our case study is that it still maintains the kind of big PlayStation, massive production values. It's still narrative, in a way, actually. In a way, ours is a kind of tailoring of the old school into the new school. Right. It's just in a way that had kind of never been done before. And I think it's worth saying that all this stuff is experimental, because like we kind of broke Facebook comments. Facebook wasn't actually designed to have 20,000 comments scrolled through, and actually that was a big problem when we were trying to scroll and load them and go back through everything. So it was using new media. I mean, we literally couldn't have done that campaign without Facebook Messenger, because we needed to, every time someone commented, we had to find out who they were and vet them to make sure they didn't have a difficult digital footprint, because they were going to be part of the brand. We had to find out where they were, we had to find out their address, we had to then calligraphize, whatever it's called, personalize how we were going to send these weapons or armor to them. And that all had to be done in real time. And I think without Facebook Messenger, I mean, if you imagine doing that on email, that would have taken weeks. I mean, we had to do it in hours. So in a way, this is, I think to Nick's point, this is taking the same brand building rules of PlayStation and the same kind of epic production qualities, but it's just taking them intimately into people's mobile behavior in a kind of a new way.
I mean, the other thing that I would say that was great about the PlayStation stuff, which is true of some of the work we've done for Beats by Dre, is that a brand if a brand reaches out to me and speaks to me, that's one thing. If a friend reaches out to me, or if I see a friend interacting with the brand, then it's going to be a lot more powerful. And a lot of the things that we do now as marketers is help other people experience the brand, so that their friends can see them. So the weapons and objects that you guys sent out, it's not like you send them out to that many people, but the ripple of the sort of social sharing from that is where you get these network effects and you get scale. And hearing directly from a friend who got a hammer is a lot more powerful than PlayStation tell me there's a hammer out there.
Exactly, and I mean, to go back to the objectives that I laid out at the start, people were saying, oh my God, I'm a 360 user, I've been on Xbox for 10 years, they've never done anything like this for me. And that was like, literally, that was the objective. That's what we wanted to prove, that we had a superior thing, via people's networks. So yeah, absolutely.
We have a little red light there saying time is up. As you can see, these people could talk could talk for hours. But I think listening to you talk, so the scale of change, I think, is frequently underestimated. This is a wholly different place to make things, and I think we're kind of just beginning to find out what we can do. I think that there's a lot ahead of us still. So, thank you very much.
I'm taking my time on my ride.